Our brief reprieve from high-profile mass killings, this time I believe it was about 5 or 6 days, has already been broken. And so despite the fact that almost certainly nothing is going to happen after the Lafayette Theater shooting that will change the situation, that'll make it less likely for shootings like this to happen in the future, regardless, we are going to try to once again place some context and show you how insane the gun situation in America actually is. Look at this chart here. The rate of gun homicide in perspective, the United States versus other comparable countries. We shouldn't need to see anything more than that. We can have disagreements about how you solve the problem, but the problem is that you have one side, liberals, with some ideas about, yes, helping people with mental illness, but also possibly making it harder in a few different ways to get hold of guns in the first place. And the other side simply saying over and over, as long as there has been a shooting in the past 90 days, it is insensitive to talk about gun control. And thankfully, with the situation that they have helped to set up, that will always be the case. And so there's no debate.
John, that it's too sensitive to talk about gun control. Last night, and again, I go back to Twitter because it's the only social media I use, but there was somebody from BuzzFeed who said, you know, forget praying.
Yes.
Let's do something, right? I don't know who it was, and I'm paraphrasing it, but that was the essence of her tweet. The world jumped all over her to the point where BuzzFeed had to step in and say, you know, a reporter shouldn't say something like this because we have a code of ethics or a code of behavior within BuzzFeed that our reporters should not say that.
They're not allowed to say anything rational or sane?
Well, no, they're not allowed to sort of, you know, opine one way or the other to show. I mean, they're trying to maintain some sort of objectivity on everything but civil rights. So civil rights, LGBT, those things, at BuzzFeed you're allowed to say as you feel on those things because they don't think there are two sides to that story.
Or post a GIF that says how you feel.
But in any case, that's not the point of this. But I know where you're going with this, Jimmy. But the point is that's what they said. But everybody jumped up. If not now, like, when are you supposed to do this? Here's the other thing. If that were my daughter in there, I would be screaming today in pain, but also in wanting to make a change about gun law. So that is the time to do it. It's the time to do it for the family. It's not disrespectful to the families to then say, no, now we're going to be talking about guns.
Yeah. Right? Remember at the Santa Barbara college shootings, there was a dad who was trying.
Richard Martinez is his name.
Screaming at the top of his lungs, and he got nothing done.
Right. Yeah. And he's working on it still. He's still in the conversation.
And look, if praying helps you through it, you know, if you were directly involved, or if you weren't directly involved, if it makes you feel better about the situation, fine, pray.
Yeah.
But
it's not to say don't pray. It's to say you can also do the other.
But also perhaps acknowledge that people prayed after all of the other mass shootings as well. Maybe that changed the likelihood of them happening in the future.
In Charleston, they prayed before the mass shooting.
Exactly. They pray all the time, every day. That's a constant. I want a variable to flip. I want the variable of, are we going to do anything about it in terms of legislation, to go from a 0 to a 1. I want us to change laws. Keep praying after the laws have changed if you want to, but first let's change the laws.
Well, the issue with having any kind of thing happen that will at least be said to change something after something like this happens, it actually reveals their insincerity when they have a response to something. As we saw when Wayne LaPierre came out after Sandy Hook and said, you know, only a bad guy with a gun can stop, or only a good guy with a gun. Right. That whole stupid ass line. So it reveals that whenever there's any kind of response to something, immediately after, theirs is always something very political or money-making or self-serving. So they go, well, you must be doing the same thing. You can't speak that quickly.
So
if you get out there in front of me and my political message, then you must have a political message.
And it's not just guns. It's 9/11, right? What did they come? They come, well, we got to bomb these guys and kill these people. That is a visceral reaction to something horrendous that happened, right? It doesn't mean you're not praying for the families. It doesn't mean you're not caring about what happens and the aftercare and the emergency workers and all of that. But by the same token, we're human. We react. If you think there's a gun problem, this is when you highlight that and you say there's a gun problem. That's all.
Yeah, and look, there is a gun problem. In fact, one way that I think summarizes it pretty well is we know, from previous years, there are a lot of people who die in car accidents in America. It's a very high number. It's been thankfully going down over time, but still very high. However, this might be the year that we actually have more people who die due to gun violence than car accidents for the first time in America. Car crashes killed 33,561 people in 2012. Firearms killed slightly less, 1,000 less in 2011, the most recent year that we have total reliable numbers on. But shooting deaths in 2015 will probably rise to above 33,000. And those related to autos will decline to about 32,000 based on the 10-year average trend. This is based on an analysis done by Bloomberg. And so
So we're
Look, we've made changes.
Can I give you
It's
one
not good
more-
ones.
Can I give you one more stat? It's
Sure.
this one from the Washington Post. So I'm reading from the Washington Post today. It says there have been 204 mass shootings in the United States in 2015, and there's been 204 days in 2015 so far. So exactly 204 days, 204 mass shootings. According to the Washington Post.
What makes a mass shooting?
That's
Like
what I
what?
was gonna ask.
Yeah, what
I guess
what
I don't
I think
know,
it's
4 or
something to do
more?
with 5. I thought it was 6, but I'm not sure
Okay.
exactly.
But I mean, the higher it goes, the more astonishing it becomes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's almost, so it turns out it's like one a day. So I was listening to NPR on the way here, and they were talking about how there had been Chattanooga even more besides this, but you didn't get covered because they were like family shootings, like somebody shot 4 people in their family.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, and that didn't really, because so it wasn't like that random in a movie theater. It was just your normal, I'm going to kill 4 people in my family, which we don't bat an eye at in this country anymore.
Exactly.
That's how messed up things are.
Yeah, that's why I, in the intro, had to say high-profile mass shootings, because, of course, every single day there's going to be a mass shooting.
And here's what has to happen, John. There needs to be leadership, the kind of leadership that Barack Obama could provide, or somebody just like him could stand there and say, okay, we all know that everyone's ignoring the part that talks about the militia in the Second Amendment. We all know that. We all know the Second Amendment doesn't mean that. So we now have to just keep saying that over and over, and you people are being anti-constitutional who say that you have a right to own a gun. You have a privilege to own a gun. We have a right to have a standing militia, a well-regulated militia, and people need to start saying, because they're afraid to say that. Democrats are afraid to say it. Barack Obama won't. You have to say that over, because by the way, that's the fact. That's the truth. And that's what we need to, that's why we're in this situation, because people are misinterpreting over and over the Second Amendment. It does not allow for personal gun ownership. It allows for a well-regulated militia.
Now, one other fact I want to give you. So this is in response to the idea that we hear all the time, standard every day, but also in response to shootings, that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, and a gun will make you safer. That's why you buy a gun, to protect yourself and to protect your family. Well, with less than 5% of the world's population, the United States is home to 35 to 50% of the world's civilian-owned guns. And so the only lesson we can take from this is having almost half of all of the guns in the world is not enough to keep you safe. You got to get that number up to 60, 70, maybe 80%, and then you'll be truly protected.
So this goes back to Michael Moore's question in Bowling for Columbine. Why are we so much more violent than the rest of the world? I don't, he never really was able to answer that question. That was still, I think it's still an open-ended question. I don't know. I think it's because of, when you have poverty, when you have industry leaving, and you're closing down like for instance, Chicago, when you're closing down 200 public schools, you have industry leaving, people don't have jobs, and then you throw guns, unlimited guns on top of that. That's gasoline on a fire.
Yes.
So they don't do that in other countries where there's poverty. They don't just go dump a bunch of guns on their poverty problem, which that's what we do in America.
Yeah.
Well, we have the emotional problem of having a superiority complex, also afraid of everything, and then also devastation. As you're talking about poverty problems, just growing up without having much of an opportunity. So you have issues where you have crime, even if they're low levels of crime. If you see, we criminalize this, we talk about all the time, marijuana. So anytime anyone wants to be demonized, oh, did they have pot in their system? What did they do then? So we're afraid of everyone. To a 13-year-old who may have some pot in the system.
Yeah.
So in order to protect yourself, you strong, superior American, get your gun because you're so afraid. It's it's a collision of all kinds of feelings and emotions that throw in a lot of enemies within our own country even. So especially when it comes international, it's like, oh, but what about those foreign people who hate us? Because everyone hates us because of how great we are, but we're so great that we can kick your ass. It's a big circle of all kinds of emotion that really add up to a fucking war within our own country.